Hello and welcome. This is my 2019 Specialized Rockhopper. It is easily my favorite mountain bike in my collection. If you know the history of this bike, you might find that statement just a little bit amusing. If not, well then, a brief recap is in order. I bought this bike from my local bike shop in the spring of 2019, basically on a whim. And at that time, the Acid Kiwi Green paint blinded me to the very entry-level spec of the bike. But that spec notwithstanding, I rode this bike in stock form all that season and I loved every single mile that I put on it. Then the upgrade bug hit. Long story short, the only stock parts left are the frame and wheels. Even the derailleur hanger got replaced after I bent it. So, the fact that it's my favorite mountain bike is kind of funny since there is so little of the original bike left. Expanding on that subject, it recently occurred to me that I'm currently on my fourth drivetrain. The Rockhopper came stock with a Shimano 3x8 drivetrain, with an Alivio front derailleur, a Tourney rear derailleur, a riveted Tourney 22, 36, 44 crankset, an 11 to 34 8-speed cassette, and a set of Easy Fire combo brake shifter units. As I mentioned, I ran this setup for my first season with the bike. It is clearly not a high-end group set, but it was sturdy and completely dependable. Well, time passed and I replaced the stock drivetrain with an IXF Holotech style crankset, having first installed a square taper 1x crankset, and a Snail 32-tooth narrow-wide chainring, along with an Altus rear derailleur, an Altus trigger shifter, Avid alloy brake levers, and a Sunrace 11 to 40 tooth 9-speed cassette. Converting the bike to a 1x9 with a 40 tooth low gear made climbing so much easier I could hardly believe it at the time. And I ran it that way for a couple of years. Then, well, just for fun, I upgraded the Rockhopper with a SRAM NX 1x11 group set absinthe crankset. I got the NX components from my Nishiki Colorado Comp 27.5 Plus, since sold. There was nothing wrong with the Nishiki, it was a great bike in fact, but I had stopped riding it because of fit issues. Now the swap was a pretty straightforward process. Both cassettes came off their hubs a lot easier than I anticipated, so that helped. I was a little concerned about the chain clearance for 11th gear, or the smallest cog, but it fit with several millimeters to spare, and a spacer on the drive side crank arm helped with alignment. When I sold the Nishiki last year, I put this drivetrain back on it and reinstalled the Altus 9-speed setup, but that would not stay. In July of 2022, I bought an 11-speed kit off of Amazon, which included an L-Twoo AX shifter, AX rear derailleur, and an L-Twoo 11 to 50 tooth cassette. I got the kit for just $130. Now, at the time, at that price, I had fairly low expectations. I figured it would be good for a laugh at worst. But to my everlasting surprise, this L-Twoo drivetrain has performed flawlessly. I ran it all of last season, and it's still running great so far this season. The only thing I ever had to do with it when I initially put it on was to tweak the barrel adjuster just a little bit. That was it. I still occasionally get comments on and offline that I wasted my money buying a cheap Chinese drivetrain. There are several things that come to my mind on that, and I'll just say the polite ones. First, Chinese is not automatically synonymous with cheap in terms of quality. Yes, I know there are some issues but they're not endemic. Now this specific drivetrain is a good case in point. It is well built and it has given me exactly 0 problems. And trust me, I do not pamper it on the trails. Second, another point is that this kind of disparagement makes very little sense to me, since so many mainstream bike components are sourced from China as well. Now, people used to talk trash about Japanese bikes in the 70s and Korean electronics not so long ago. You know, every industry will have growing pains when entering a new market, but that is not to say that their products are inherently bad. Third, there are several smaller companies competing with Shimano and SRAM for mainstream mountain bike components in the market, and they kind of went through similar periods of skepticism, I'm sure. Now, I don't include Campagnolo since they make road and gravel group sets, nor do I include boutique brands. I'm thinking of brands like Box and Microshift. And I did notice that L-Twoo is spec'd on some big box bikes now, and Sensa is making inroads in the market. So when an upper middle tier L-Twoo drivetrain sells for well under $200, it's hard for me not to be intrigued. And that's why I went this route. I have linked to a playlist for the Rockhopper lower left, including several upgrade videos. There's a link to another video lower right. And as always, thanks for watching. I do appreciate that. Goodbye and have a wonderful day.